Hey, Jason, thanks for making time today. I really wanted to talk to you about the article that you published about image optimization for e-commerce, because I think from seeing you a little bit behind the scenes talking about this, that you landed in a place that you didn't expect to land. And that to me is exciting and interesting. So if we could first start with where you typically make recommendations about image optimization. Like, what do you normally tell people about how to optimize their images for the web?
I mean, usually it's can you make the image file size as small as possible? And that the way that we compress images on the web is that, with sort of rare exceptions, when we make file sizes smaller, we're sacrificing image quality. So we're reducing the quality, and the task is to try to figure out how much you can compress an image and not have people notice that it's been compressed, not have artifacts in the image that make it look bad or other things that get in the way of the image. But I've always been really aggressive on compressing images, because the speed of websites and people's experience on them really makes a difference. So like compress it as much as you can. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have been, as you know, you and I have been diving deeper into e-commerce. We've had a lot of customers in e-commerce before, but we've never really focused on it as like a focus of our business or trying to target those types of sites in the past. And so, what did you learn when looking at images for e-commerce? Because it seems like you're making a slightly different recommendation.
Yeah, it's the thing that is slightly different for e-commerce and probably not as true for non-e-commerce websites, but is true for e-commerce websites is that um, image quality appears to have a connection to returns, product returns. And it makes a lot of sense. In the article, there's an example that Colin Bendel, who's uh, like sort of a pretty senior person at Shopify, like advisor to the CEO, had provided me of a red dress. And the red dress, this actually came from a customer complaint, Shopify customer who is selling this red dress. And because of the sort of compression algorithms, the color of the dress shifts, and it shifts enough that instead of getting a dress that looks, I think the dress is described as tango or tango red. It
Mhm.
looks a little cherry to me. I don't know. But the compression actually changes it to burgundy, at least to my eyes. Like it no longer it looks darker, by any stretch. And so you can imagine if somebody bought that dress, and got it home, that they might be a little disappointed if they thought, oh, this dress is going to go with these shoes. But in fact, instead of being the burgundy to go with their burgundy shoes, it's actually the tango red that doesn't at all go with their shoes. And so then they return it. And when they return it, if we're lucky, it's something that can be reused, but then you've got the cost to business to ship it back and to process it, and then sell it as used, not used, but like a returned item,
Restocked or yeah,
restocked, or
yeah.
yeah, whatever, however they want to describe it. Um, so they can't sell it at full price. So you've got all of that, and then just a shocking. This is the other eye opener: is the shocking amount of returns that end up in landfills. And
Yeah, I
so
always find that to be like incredibly shocking because when I return something, I think like, cool, they'll just resell it again. But
yeah,
maybe not. In a vast majority of
yeah,
cases, they're not. Yeah.
yeah. It's billions of pounds of returns going into landfills every year. Um, so from a web performance community, we've really focused on trying to make things faster to make sure that users have a better experience, and we've talked about the cost to users based on their network connections, on how much it costs to download a web page, and also the environmental impact of slow loading web pages, both from like they consume more energy on a person's device. They require data servers, servers and data centers to process it. Web page test, which is added a carbon cost tool to their evaluations of pages in terms of performance. So like all of these things from an environmental perspective are something that we're trying to keep in mind from on performance. And yet, like if it's all ending up in a landfill and it causes returns, then maybe we shouldn't be compressing images quite so much on e-commerce sites.
Right.
And so that's like the big challenge to I guess the way that I've been thinking about this previously was, okay, like maybe in some instances that image that's larger is actually the right size image. Even though I can probably compress it more, maybe by compressing it more, I'm losing some of the image quality that's important for somebody purchasing it. And, I can't see that difference.
Yeah, that's what I was
Particularly,
gonna say. It's hard
yeah,
to perceive with your own eye. I mean, in the red dress example, you can tell. Like and it is hard to put like a name on it. Bless the people who have to name product colorways because that's that's very tough. But like you can kind of see it. So what do you do like if you can't rely on a person looking at it? Like how do you know where how far to tune it?
yeah. I think, it's, I think the point about not being able to rely on a person to do it is actually the takeaway for me. Um, there are probably people who, are trained and better attuned to colors, probably people who are younger, because as we
What are you saying,
age,
Jason?
well, just as we age,
Yeah, yeah.
our perception of colors decreases. Probably women, because women tend to actually see colors better, and there's a certain percentage of women who have four cones for detecting vision, and there's a much lower percentage, if I don't even know if there are any on men. I think it's predominantly on women. So like you might be able to find somebody who can do that, but then like even then you're assuming that they're going to be able to consistently detect those things. And so instead, I think that this is why relying again on sort of an image optimization service that has developed heuristics for determining how much they can compress an image without having it reduce its visual quality. And those, it's not like those machines are like just have some sort of superpower to do this. They've been trained on hundreds or thousands of humans actually looking at images and like comparing them and making decisions about whether they see differences or not. It's just that out of that they've developed the ability to recognize when an image has had its quality reduced so much that it no longer looks exactly the same. And so
So
use those services.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the robots win again, is what you're saying.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah.
The
But I mean,
robots that we trained.
yeah. The reality though is that even without this, that any site of any significant size shouldn't be handling their images on their own anyways,
Yeah.
especially like an e-commerce product site. But because you're going to want to resize it for different size screen resolutions, you want to automatically transform it into different image formats. All of that stuff is stuff that it doesn't make sense for a human to create 20 different image
Right.
sizes, format combos. Like just give it to this, you know and a lot of the platforms have it built in. For example, Shopify has a lot of this stuff built into its platform, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
um, but
Perfect.
the other thing I think, which is something that e-commerce companies need to keep in mind is actually using um, wide gamut uh, image images. So basically, being able to take advantage of new color spaces that give us access to more colors, and a lot of people, a majority of people actually at this point have displays that support wide gamut images, and yet
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of our web um, I don't know, like processing tools and sort of what we're used to doing flattens all of those colors into sRGB, which doesn't support as much as like display P3, which is the new standard that allows us to actually see like bright oranges and, will better represent actually what a product looks like.
Yeah, and hopefully reduce the environmental impact of getting the a product that looks slightly different and then
And the
resulting in
billions
a
of
return.
dollars
The
associated
money.
with,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that research and for laying it all out for all of us.
yeah, no problem.